Here are some of the tools you'll need to install your steering system. It's basically the same for the Pro Angler steering system or the Universal. You'll need about the same. You need a set of cutters, either this style, a set of tin snips, or these are a set of cutters that you can get from Amazon or whatever else. They're basically used to make bicycle cables. The one thing that this has is this little tool right here that will help you open up the end of the cable housing. Inside the cable housing there, it's lined with like a neoprene or plastic sleeve, so when you cut it, it crimps it down, so you got to open it back up. So this little tool here goes inside and opens it up. You can also just use fine tool or fine pick, or I've even used a thumbtack in before, so that'll help open that end up to get the cable through. Screwdriver, either a 9/32 socket or 7mm, both will work, and some super glue. I like to use this super glue here. It has an activator, so it sets up really quick. I use this when I cut the cable. Before I cut the cable, I add some super glue to the area that I'm going to cut, let it set up, and then cut there. That way it stops the cable from fraying and opening up. Makes it easy in the long run. One of the first things you'll need to do is remove your Hobie rudder handle. If you don't have the riser kit already installed, you'll need to get the longer bolt that comes with the longer screw that comes with your Hobie, that goes with the riser kit. You'll need that screw to fasten the new steering. Once you have the handle removed, take your provided steering handle, the steering cam already assembled, just place it over top. As you can see, there's already a cutout for a locating pin. Install the screw and tighten that down. Next, you want to install the H-rail cable clamp. Hardware is provided. Just the top cable clamp itself, H-rail clamp, 2 carriage bolts, and 2 wing nuts. You'll want to install your H-rail cable clamp approximately 6 to 8 inches away from the steering. That just gives enough room for the cable to move and without binding. Then you move on to the motor bracket cable clamp. On the Newport NK180S bracket, I like to install it back to these back holes back here. The Torpedo doesn't have these holes, so a lot of guys will just install and clamp it in place. Theirs goes down a little bit this way, and they'll install it down near the end and just clamp it in place with the screw and a washer. Some guys have drilled holes through their bracket and installed it that way as well. So once you get the cable housing for the motor bracket installed, we can move on to installing the cable housing. So with your kit, you'll receive 2 lengths of cable housing. They should be long enough to reach from the front bracket or the front housing to the rear. Again, you may have to trim some. So I'm just using a full length here for my install, but you'll have two lengths. First thing you'll want to do is check the end, make sure it's opened. This one is not, so I'm going to use my tool to open it up. I've got it opened up there, as you can see. Your kit will come with 4 of these cable housing end caps. So we'll place that on the end of their first end here. It simply slips over like so. First thing we'll do is we'll place this end. We'll start on this side first. So we'll get it in place. Another tool I forgot to mention was Allen keys. You'll need 3/32 Allen key to tighten up the set screws and hold the cable housing in place. So now you're going to want to figure out the route of your cable. I like to keep mine along the gunnel here, and then route it up and across and up to this motor bracket. One thing you need to do, so if you're installing the cable on, let's say we'll call this the left side, when you come over back to the motor bracket cable housing, you have to install it on the right side, and likewise the right side from here to the left side over here. So what you're doing is you're crisscrossing the cables in between the two mount. And that's to make sure that the cable turns the motor in the proper direction. So once I've determined the cable routing, I can get an idea on the length. Simply kind of mark it where I want to. So I'm going to cut mine off right about here. So once I've cut it off, again, I'm going to have to open up this end. The end is opened up, so now I'm just going to put the end cap on and install it in the motor bracket mount. Okay, the first cable housing's installed. Now on to the next one. A little tip: when tightening these set screws, don't over tighten them and collapse the cable housing. I like to hold the cable with one hand, wiggle it while I'm tightening the set screw with the other. Then I know when it's starting to make contact, and just go in a little bit further, just so that they're not going to pull out, but you don't want to, again, don't want to collapse the housing, and you won't be able to get the cable through. Now take your cable provided, the end that's cut off and not crimped, start fishing it through. I like to start with one end here and just start fishing it all the way through until it comes out the other side. When it gets near here, sometimes it when you're trying to fish it through, it binds up a little. Just kind of work it back and forth, and she'll usually pop out. If it doesn't, then just loosen your set screw, pull it out, take the end cap off, and kind of fish it through, and throw the end cap back on, put her back together, have her come through. So now you're gonna want to fish it through your hole that corresponds in line with that. Come around. There's another clamp here. You'll loosen that up and put her through. Loop it around this hole, back out through here, and then you're going to want to start in this hole over here and go all the way back to the motor. Once you have your cable looped all the way around, you want to install your motor. You want to lock it in place through the locking pin. I just put this in here now just so that it doesn't move, and you want to have your rudder up and locked in place and going straight at the same time. Install the clip that's already provided. Then you're going to take your other end with your adjustable clamp here, loop it around and install the clip, and then you're going to adjust the length of the cable to so that it's taut. Before you start pulling up the slack, make sure you're rooted properly, that you're in that clamp area there. Everything is down. Again, your rudder's locked in place, your motor's locked in place, and then you just want to pull up the slack on this. You want this fairly tight, just so that there's no slack in the line. You're getting the full turning motion. So once you get that fairly tight, the way you like it, and tighten up your 2 screws to tighten up the cable clamp. I use this initially. Over time the cable may stretch a little bit, so then you can pull up the slack, and once you're confident that it's in place and not going to move anymore, there's an extra crimp that's with your kit. I always have it installed on the line prior, and then at the end, if there's a little bit of excess, I'll put the final crimp on it and leave it there, and that should hold it secure in place for good. So if you're confident everything's installed correctly and you got your slack taken up, go on in, tighten your set screws here. Once you get your set screws tight on the clamp, and so that it doesn't rotate on the cable, you can pull your locking pin for your motor, drop your rudder down, and turn this sideways a little bit, and get back up under here and tighten the screw for the cable clamp, the center cable clamp. A word of caution: don't over tighten these Allen screws. Again, you're only in plastic. You'll start to feel the resistance once you start clamping down, and that's it. Should you happen to strip one of these out, you can go out and get a larger size screw, a stainless steel screw, and put it in there, or you can find a larger size Allen screw and use that. But the easiest method usually is just to grab a larger screw and screw it in there to clamp onto that. I just like to go around and secure the cables in this area. I just use a few zip ties. That's it. Keeps it nice and neat, out of the way. Once you got it all buttoned up, tightened up, come back, test it out, make sure it's turning. And that's it. Every now and then go around, just check your Allen keys, make sure they're, or your Allen screws, make sure they're tight and everything's holding secure.